Would you get rid of Hamas? Would you keep Hamas in power?
What do you think of what Hamas did on October the 7th?
Why are you starting the story in the middle?
I didn't.
Would you categorize what happened on October the 7th as resistance? What is Hamas waging against Israel?
I would love if they would contest.
Journalist Piers Morgan has been giving pro-Palestinian voices a platform on his show Uncensored.
I have deliberately given large chunks of my show each night to voices like yours to tell the side of the Palestinians.
But critics say the debate isn't exactly fair. So we watched hours of Piers Morgan interviews to find out if that's the case. Morgan has been diplomatically asking pro-Israel or Israeli figures the same questions, which are getting pretty played out after 50 days of war.
What is a proportionate response? What is the correct response to the outrage of October the 7th?
Most, if not all, of his interviews on YouTube focus on atrocities committed during Hamas's attack on October 7th, while failing to adequately address with equal conviction the atrocities being committed by Israel in Palestine and Gaza. Although he did attempt to push Israel's ambassador to the UK to admit a humanitarian crisis is unfolding in Gaza. But recent interviews are bucking that trend. For example, here's a look at Morgan's latest interview with Israeli spokesperson Eylon Levy.
We know that we've killed thousands of terrorists. We know that Hamas is inflating the numbers.
You don't actually know
and
that.
We believe...
But that's my problem with this. You say you have, but when I push you for the details, you don't have them.
Morgan went on to warn Levy that if Israeli aggression continues, Tel Aviv could lose its international support. While Morgan does maintain that he is aware of Israel's blockade on Gaza, and that it is inconceivable that Israel has the power to switch off their access to electricity, food, and water, his oft-regurgitated statements remain superficial and don't delve deep enough into the harsh realities of Israel's occupation of Gaza and the occupied West Bank. In other words, his inquiries lack nuance. And that isn't even the fault of the guests on the show. Not completely anyway. By pursuing the same line of questioning with nearly every guest, Morgan provokes the same answers, perpetuating the same cycle of debate, lacking variation in both discourse and context. And get this, while Morgan has been providing a platform to pro-Palestinian voices, he often interrupts them a lot more frequently than he does Israeli voices.
Hold on, let me finish.
I think you're a smart guy.
Piers, let me finish. You're asking me to be on your show. Do you want to talk?
Allow me to finish. Allow me to finish and don't interrupt me.
It's honestly a pretty exhausting binge-watching exercise. And when Morgan is not asking the same jaded questions, he's kicking off almost every interview with a pro-Palestinian figure with a discussion of the events of October 7th. Framing the dialogue around that date ignores the oppression and illegal occupation Palestinians have been under since 1948. And Morgan's accusatory tone of questioning immediately puts the interviewee on the defensive, like when he interviewed Egyptian podcaster Rahma Zain after a viral interaction with CNN correspondent Clarissa Ward.
When you look back at yourself in that exchange with Clarissa, how do you feel about the way that you addressed her? Do you have any regret? Or do you feel you could have expressed yourself differently? Or do you feel that it accurately represented how you were feeling?
One exception to Morgan's lack of nuance is his interview with Egyptian comedian Bassem Youssef, particularly the second round. Morgan has also failed to consistently provide vital context on how Israel's illegal occupation is more than just turning off water and electricity and blocking aid deliveries. For example, Israeli settler attacks on Palestinians and the arbitrary arrest of Palestinians in the occupied territories are rarely addressed on his show. His handling of pro-Israeli voices was worlds apart from his discourse with pro-Palestinian voices in the early days after October 7th. All that said, some netizens say that Uncensored has defied expectations and has proven itself to be one of the fairer Western platforms to address the Israel-Palestine conflict. That's because Morgan has been providing a platform to numerous pro-Palestinian voices, like British rapper Low Key, Palestinian-American activist Nardine Keswani, and Palestinian ambassador to the UK, Hussam Zomlot, often moderating debates between pro-Palestine and pro-Israel figures. Thrice, he has pitted Kiswani against Emily Austin, an American journalist of Israeli descent, and each time the dialogue goes like it did previously, except for their last verbal spar, where Austin called Kiswani
borderline a terrorist
live on air, and Morgan didn't bat an eye. Here's another example of Morgan's lazy moderation.
Now he is a Holocaust denier because he is saying that the Jews are engaged in a genocide of the Palestinians. Now, this liar? Which nation, how can there be 1.8 million?
Noticeably absent in Uncensored's lineup are voices from Gaza, which may help explain why Morgan sometimes gets mired in such trite debates. But there is a marked difference between Morgan's conduct immediately after October 7th and his rhetoric now that the ceasefire has culminated and Israel has resumed its bombardments of Gaza. What do you think? Is Uncensored censored or a level playing field?